You've never really studied butts. You're not a buttologist.
No, but I think...
Have you had a butterectomy?
Oh, I was going to say that.
When you have buns, do you put butter on them?
Yeah, butter. It's got butt in it. Anyway, welcome to our show.
Hello Mouses, today I have with me notable personage Jennifer Kirk.
Hello everybody.
And we're going to be talking about the news, because it's the news on Tuesday. First up, we have the strange story from the Telegraph about a woman in Yorkshire who was raised by monkeys.
Are you sure you didn't get this out of the Sport on Sunday or
I
something?
know, it is that kind of level. But London bus found on moon. What about that one about the World War II bomber that was found on the moon? And then some astronomer looked for it and then wrote in saying it's not there. And then they read another story saying World War II bomber disappears from moon. That is the kind of level of story that you would expect. But this is actually apparently true. This woman was...
What, the bomber on the moon?
No! The woman from Yorkshire who... Well, the woman in Yorkshire is not actually from Yorkshire. She spent 5 years living in the jungle, being part of a pack of monkeys, learning how to capture and kill food herself. Then was picked up by hunters and taken to Calcutta, where she was forced into prostitution. Yeah, and then eventually managed to make her way to a family who took her in as a maid, and then they came to Britain. She married a guy while she was in York.
So how did she come to end up being with the primates in the first place?
Let me quote directly from the Daily Telegraph website. Chapman believes she was born in or about 1950 and that she was kidnapped when she was 5 before being abandoned in the jungle. So that explains it.
Okay.
Kind of.
Well, sort of.
But it's an interesting story. It's now become a book that is going to be used as part of a awareness and fundraising campaign about human trafficking, which is becoming increasingly a problem in the UK apparently. So
yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, it's a big problem and a lot needs to be done about it. So
yeah.
I'm going to say I hope that this works and awareness is raised. I'm certainly interested in reading the story myself, so I hope that they have a lot of luck with the campaign. Next up, we have an interesting story that I think anyone who's followed British politics for even a modicum of a second will understand.
Oh, yes.
Britain's hostility to Europe, not Britain as in the country, but Britons as in the people of Britain.
As in us.
Yeah, their hostility to Europe is at its highest point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I have nothing really much to say about this, but it had to be brought up because at the moment Germany is trying to unify Europe again with a fiscal market that they're going to control because all the other economies are collapsing as part of Europe. So they're basically saying, look, hand over control to us, we'll get it sorted out because we're the only ones who haven't screwed up. And Britain's saying, no.
It's like, well, actually, we didn't really. Well, we did, but not as badly as the rest of you losers.
The thing about us, though, we didn't join the euro because we saw this coming a mile off. So yes, apparently William Hague is suggesting that Britain's hostility to the idea of Europe and European unity is at its highest point for a long time. And to be honest with you, yes, I can see that. This is the reason why the UK Independence Party is getting seats in Europe,
yes.
And why it's getting seats in Parliament, and why nationalism has been on the rise. We don't like the way Europe's got us. To be honest with you, we probably would have been a lot better with the idea of unified Europe if we hadn't been lied to about what we were going into when the referendum on the common market came up.
Yeah, I think also it's worth noting at this point that when was the referendum? It was 1973, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about it, that most of the people in this country alive now never had the vote in that. We've never had the say. Because, you know, most people, myself included, weren't even born. I wasn't born until 1979, and we've never had a say. And what gets me is they'll have a referendum to go into things, but they never have a referendum to come out of things. It's like, right, we're in, that's it, democracy ends here.
That's it, exactly. The referendum was 39 years ago.
And it was for a common market, not for this political unity that we have.
And not only that, but 39 years ago. So anyone who's under, 47? Let's suggest that the referendum age was 18 before you could even vote. So if you were 47 or under at the time of the referendum, you have never had a say on being part of Europe.
Well, if you think about it, you'd have had to have been 18 or older in 1973, which means that anybody born after, is that 1955?
Yes.
Anybody born after 1955 has never had a say in this matter because it was a fait accompli. They never voted in it. Most of those people weren't even alive during that campaign. And the people who were sold the idea that it was a common trading market. It was the EEC, European Economic Community. Now, I don't know about you, but I noticed that during the 1980s and 1990s, there was never any say in the matter. But it went from EEC to EC, and now it's EU. What's going on there?
The EU came in with the Maastricht Treaty in 92 or 93, I can't remember off the top of my head which.
It was John Major, wasn't it?
It was John Major. He signed over a lot of our rights. And then Blair came along in 96, and he signed away a lot of our rights. So it's basically been a gradual erosion of rights, and that's the problem. You see, if we'd had a vote on this, and we'd said yes to going in, the hostility that Britain has to Europe would not be around now.
I think it's also important to point out that there's equal hostility towards this European Union in a lot of other European countries. And people assume, because British politicians tend to be quite vocal about it, that Britons are the awkward people in Europe. But actually, a lot of German people would prefer to be out than in because they feel that they're bankrolling a lot of this.
And you can't blame them because they are bankrolling a lot of this.
Yeah,
if we're not paying for it, they are. Or sometimes it's just both of us together.
And I think a lot of politicians all across Europe are frightened of having any kind of a referendum on an in or out thing because, quite honestly, I think there's a good few countries in Europe that the populace would vote to leave the European Union.
It's true. So I think we can sum up this with one statement. Freedom! Now this next story will divide the community just as it's divided us two. The trailer for Iron Man 3. Yes or no?
I must admit I wasn't won over by it. And there's a line in the trailer where I have a few things I need to apologise for. And my first thought was, Iron Man 2 being a really crap film would be the first thing I'd be apologising for, Mr. Iron Man. But no, it does seem to be that the old strip miner is down at the bottom of the seam now, and we're chugging a bit of clay and rocks into the gold mill.
To be honest with you, I'm looking forward to this one because it ends the story that they've been pinching from the comics.
Oh right, there's a story. I thought each film was self-contained.
They are, but to a certain extent they're in a series where it's doing one of the stories from the Warren Ellis era of Iron Man in the comics, where this type of virus type thing is taking over the suit.
Oh, paranoia about computer viruses. Now, for the record, people, you cannot catch a computer virus. It doesn't transfer the species boundary. To be honest, it doesn't even transfer the operating system boundary. It's as simple as that.
Are you suggesting that different operating systems act like different species?
Well, yes.
It's an interesting idea, isn't it? Okay, let's leave it with thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs in the middle.
I'm going to say thumbs in the middle. It could go either way, but the trailer didn't really tell me enough about the film to really reach out and grab me. It certainly didn't say to me, this is a film you really must miss. And there have been a few trailers for films that we've seen where we thought, well, there's one to miss.
Yeah, every single Paranormal Activity. So I looked at it and went, no.
Yeah, most chick flicks. But yeah, I don't think we're in their demographic. Well, we kind of are, but we aren't.
They're aiming for us, but they're missing. I'm going to say, however, thumbs up to Iron Man 3. I want to see it. I think it's going to be very interesting. And the new suit decals look very interesting. Is it Iron Patriot or something like that? That's what he reminded me of, but I'm not sure. Okay, this next story is one that I think we may have to end on because we're running out of time. A beluga whale that appears to be attempting to mimic human sounds.
Oh yes, have you actually heard the sounds?
I have. Do you want to hear it now? For those of you who haven't heard it yet, this is from the BBC website. I love that bit at the end. He just gives up and blows air. It's like...
But you have to admit, I mean, it's... The whale basically appears to be mimicking human sounds. The whale hasn't quite... obviously doesn't really know what people are saying, but it's trying to mimic the sound. And it's a bit like if you or I tried to mimic somebody who speaks in a completely different language to us. For example, a lot of foreigners, it makes me sound very xenophobic, but no, people who don't speak English might hear your sort of stereotypical upper class Brit as going far, 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 and you understand that that's kind of what the whale's doing. They're doing the far, 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 far sound because it doesn't know the words.
Yeah. The other thing to remember is that a whale's vocal system is completely alien, and it's having to do an awful lot of tricks, such as inflating some of the ducts in its air hole in order to be able to produce these sounds. It's trying really hard using alien vocal systems to do this. So it's a conscious effort. It's a very definite conscious effort to try and mimic these sounds, which I think is fascinating.
It does show a very high level of intelligence. It has to be said that my parents had a cat, sadly passed away recently, but he quite obviously was trying to mimic certain human sounds, and you could almost convince yourself that he was saying hello when he rushed in to go to his food bowl, and in some ways that there are creatures which do, I suppose, through repeated exposure and familiarity, do start to mimic certain sounds that humans around them will obviously be making.
Certain kinds of bird are famous for it, of course. I had a cockatiel myself which knew a load of words and could attempt to hold down a conversation. It would be a very circular conversation, but it was clear that it understood what it was saying.
Did it know the meaning of what it was saying?
Yes, I believe it did. And this is very interesting because there was a scientific experiment in the 90s with a parrot that clearly knew the meaning of the words it was saying. It understood what it was talking about, and it could hold down a very limited conversation. It was like talking to a 2-year-old.
Yeah,
in terms of word use. But when it died, it said, "I'm going now, I'll see you later."
But was that a phrase that it had used much whilst it had been alive?
It had used those words, but what it actually means is it knew that death meant leaving, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's something that's sort of become ingrained in the human way of thinking, because you go back to the likes of the Middle Ages. People were quite nasty with animals and treated them as just being these sort of stupid meat bags. And it's only comparatively more recently that we kind of come to understand that animals have a sentience and an intelligence to greater or lesser degrees. And I think it's still a sign of human arrogance inbuilt into just the way we're all brought up, that we're kind of almost shocked that a different species can actually have intelligence. We assume that all animals are dumb, but that's not necessarily the case.
Very true. Okay, and that's all we've really got time for today. I'm going to say thank you very much to Jennifer Kirk. Jennifer has some books available at the moment from All Mouse Media, and I'll put some links in the description bar below, but you can find her at jennifer-kirk.com. If you like this video, remember to click the like button, share it with your friends so that they can see what's going on in the world as well, and subscribe for future videos. Until next time, I've been Zoe Kirk-Robinson, that's been Jennifer Kirk, you've been watching the Knob Mouse channel, and I'll see you tomorrow.